Mary Monica Williams of Tempe St. George passed away on Saturday 27th May 2023 in Trinidad at the age of 53. She was the wife of Shane Williams, daughter of Alan Simon, mother of Kareem, Shay, Chantel, Shakim and Zion, sister of Anne-Marie, Erlene, Irma, Shirley Ann, Beverly, Valerie, Derek, Robert and Junior, aunt of many, cousin of many. Many other relatives and close friends, including Rhonda Barber and family of St. Vincent, the general manager and staff of Nawasa, the pastor and members of the New Life Fellowship Church, Victory World Impact Ministries in Canada, the Garden of Prayer for All Nations Deliverance Center in Point Fort in Trinidad, members of the Joshua Generation Ministry, New Birth Prayer and Deliverance Sanctuary, the Church of God of Prophecy, Faith Deliverance Tabernacle, Eternal Love Ministry, the Lucas Street New Testament Church, Harvest Time Assembly, Montmoritz, the Garden of Prayer, and friends and neighbors of Tempe and surrounding areas, and in the USA, Canada, England, and Trinidad. The funeral of the late Mary Monica Williams of Tempe St. George will take place on Friday, July 7th at 11:30 a.m. Funeral service will be held at the Gateway Assembly, Caliste, and interment will be at the Wilberforce Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Monica Bernadette Samuel Alexis, also known as Monix or Young Girl, of La Femme, who resided at Westerhall St. David and in Trinidad, transformed this life peacefully on Friday, June 16, 2023, at the age of 81. She was the godmother of Grace Lewis, sister of Jane Isaac of Beaton and Dennis Samuel, niece of Sonny Francis of Westerhall, aunt of many including Joseph and Leslie Samuel, Christine Hector and Wendy Bloomfield in the USA, grand and great aunt of many including David Burris, Katisha George, Samantha, Kenisha, Kenaya and Angel Lewis, sister-in-law of Cynthia Grenade Samuel. Other relatives and friends including Angela Rogers of Barbados, the Antwine family of Barbados and Grenada, the Noel, Felix, Samuel, Francis and Alexis families in Grenada, and friends and neighbors in Trinidad. The funeral of the late Monica Bernadette Samuel Alexis, also known as Monix or Young Girl, of La Femme, who resided at Westerhall St. David and in Trinidad, will take place on Friday, July 7th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at Bailey's Chapel, Coronage, St. George's, and interment will be at the Wilberforce Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Olivia Baptiste Bascom of Munich St. Andrew, who resided at Belmont St. George and in Montreal, Canada, passed away on June 18, 2023, at the age of 91. She was the mother of Tessa and Abigail Bascom, loving and devoted grandmother of Sharif and Chevron Bascom Ferguson, mother-in-law of Mr. Ashby Tyson and Mr. Isaac Ferguson. She will also be deeply missed by her nieces and nephews in Canada, the United Kingdom, the USA, Grenada and Trinidad, Miss Angela in Grenada, who was like a third daughter, and by all her friends in Canada and Grenada. The funeral service for the late Olivia Baptiste Bascom of Munich St. Andrew, who resided at Belmont St. George and in Montreal, Canada, will take place on Friday, July 7th in Montreal, Canada. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Aaron Dominic Douglas Daniel John, also known as AJ, Akela and Baker, of Top Hill Carriacou, who resided at John Anglais St. George and Mondelez St. David, passed away on Sunday 11th June 2023 at the age of 73. Left to mourn are his brothers Kenneth, Anthony, Joseph John in Carriacou, Ricardo, Paul and Winston Keynes Douglas in Grenada, and Andrew John in the USA. Sisters Monica Akins in the UK and Morella Bishop in the USA. Nieces and nephews Roy, Ronika, Mishka, Jarvis, Charlotte, Stacy, Leah, Kendall, Andrea, and many other nieces, nephews, and cousins too numerous to mention. Adopted father of many, including Daniel Danny John in the UK, Justin Telesford, Christopher Alexander, and many others. godfather of many, too numerous to mention. Other relatives and friends including the Charles and John families in Carriacou, the US and the United Kingdom, the Keynes-Douglas family in Grenada, the Redhead family in Grenada and the US, the staff at George F. Huggins, members of the St. John's Ambulance Brigade, members of the 1st Grenada Scout Group, and the Blessed Sacrament Church Grand Aunts, and friends and neighbours of Mondelez, Jean Anglais, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Aaron Dominic Douglas Daniel John, also known as AJ, Akela, and Baker, of Tophill Carriacou, who resided at Jean Anglais St. George and Mondelez St. David, will take place on Monday, July 10th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Blessed Sacrament Church, Grand Aunt St. George, and entombment will be at the Hillsborough Cemetery, Carriacou, on Tuesday, July 11th. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Hensley Ewart Miles, also known as Yellow, of Pedmotar St. David, passed away on Wednesday, 21st June 2023, at the age of 57. He was the son of Thelma Miles, brother of Jefferson, Roger, Valerie Ann Louise, and Marilyn, father of Kimon, Jonathan, and April, also known as Lexi, grandfather of Kimaya, Kimora, Zandaya, Zaya, and Genovia, uncle of Jenilyn, Cami, Morris, Travis, Morgan, Ronan, and Kenji, brother-in-law of Dunbar, Barbara and Beth, father-in-law of Lonisha, Joycelyn, and Jellon, nephew of Dessa, Reuben, Carlton, and Dorset. Many cousins, other relatives, and close friends in the USA, Trinidad, England, Canada, and Grenada, including Sap, Jerry, Kitch, Sean, and teacher Mike, the Ragbasing, Antoine, Mitchell, Findlay, and Henry families, and friends and neighbours of Clogier, Petmotar Junction, and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Hensley Ewart Miles, also known as Yellow, of Pedmotar St. David, will take place on Monday, July 10th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Dominic's Roman Catholic Church, and interment will be at the family cemetery, Pedmotar. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Bernard Buckmeyer, also known as Strongman, of Pedmotar St. David, who resided at Mongeloo St. George, passed away on Friday, 23rd June 2023, at the age of 67. Left to mourn are his wife, Petrolina Gibson, children, Natalie Bridgman, Lanessa, and Jonathan Gibson, brothers and sisters, Raymond Buckmeyer, Rosalind Kennedy, Bob Buckmeyer, Terry Buckmeyer, Deborah Buckmeyer, and Wilfred Buckmeyer. Grandson, Easton Marcus Gibson. Brothers-in-law, James Kennedy and Neil Alexis. Sisters-in-law, Barbara Buckmeyer and Jackie Buckmeyer. Aunt-in-law, Elaine Buckmeyer in Canada. Aunt, Anne Buckmeyer and family of River Road. Many nieces and nephews, too numerous to mention. Other close relatives and family, including Alice Gibson and family, Dwan Noel, Mrs. Valda Brown, Bowen Louisaw and family, the Courtney family, James Park and family, Gentle de Gale and family, all of Mongeloo, Norge Mitchell and family of Pedmotar, Althea Amady of Hopevale, Jefferson Niles and family of Westerhall, Stephen Johnson and family of Westerhall, Liban Clark, the Malin Smith family in the USA and England, Eugene Julian and family of Pedmotar, Mr. Carlisle Gabriel of Woburn, Doreen Bain of Marianne, the Bridgman family of Monthorn, and friends and family of Mongeloo, Marianne, Pedmotar, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Bernard Buckmeyer, also known as Strongman, of Pedmotar St. David, who resided at Mongeloo St. George, will take place on Tuesday, July 11th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Vincent Anglican Church, Mongeloo St. George, and interment will be at the Mongeloo Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Cutie St. John Worm of Grand Aunt St. George, who resided in New York, passed away on Thursday, 17 February 2022 in New York, at the age of 50. Left to mourn are her husband Hilton Worm, also known as Beela, daughter Caitlin Worm in New York, sisters Janice, Agnes, Linda, Nettia, Joan, and Corrine, brothers Christopher and Robert, many nieces, nephews, cousins, in-laws, neighbours and friends in Grenada and New York. A memorial service for the late Cutie St. John Worm of Grand Arm St. George, who resided in New York, USA, will take place on Tuesday, 11th July at 1:30 p.m. The service will be held at the Blessed Sacrament Church, Grand Arms, followed by interment of ashes at the Grand Arms Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Pearl Agnes Bernard, née Fletcher, also known as Mother, of Monroe Street, Victoria, St. Mark, who resided at Snell Hall and Lower Morley, St. Patrick, and in Toronto, Canada, passed away on Tuesday, 13th June 2023, at the age of 100. She was the mother of Ronald Fletcher, Joan Bernard Lewis, Jude and Joel Bernard in Grenada, Dennis Fletcher in the UK, Erlyn Hollis, Jeanette, Judith, Claire and Fred Bernard in Canada, and Christine Bernard Amoa in the USA. Grandmother of Janine Bernard, Tony, Alicia, Alexandria, Julie, Tracy, Miriam Bartholomew, Larry Hollis, Sheldon, Carl and Roland Fletcher, Lisa Murray, Crispin, Shadane, Jamar, Dr. Kelvin Bernard, Dr. Judelyn Bernard Bailey, Jodelle Bernard Alexander, Joel Bernard Jr., Sammy and John Fletcher. Adopted grandmother of Roydell, Godwin and Rondell. Great-grandmother of Adrian, Fabian, Faith, Dr. Ryan Hollis, Kirby, Sierra, Chelsea, Aidan, Naomi, Ava, Bryce, Zachary, Jasmine, Zoe, Keturah and Kimora, Amelia, Adira, Xavier and Talia. Mother-in-law of Sal Fletcher, Verdlin, Dale and Elaine Bernard, Dr. John Amoa, and Leroy Jones. Sister of Eva, Kingsley and Denzel in Grenada, Cedric, Joy and Esther in the USA, and Ralph in Trinidad. Aunt of many, including Gerald, Sam, Dr. Albert Fletcher, Dr. Stephen Fletcher, Edith, Eva, Sylvia, Dennis, Janice, Leadon, John, Carol, Louise, Deborah, Erin, Kelvin, Paul, and Carol. Sister-in-law of Dorette and Centilla Fletcher. Caretaker, Carleon Jeremiah. Other relatives and friends, including the Fletcher family of St. Mark, St. John, and St. George, the Bernard, Thomas, Bartholomew, and Charles families of Snell Hall, the Barry family of Lamode, Pastor Christopher Williams, Lincoln Bernard and family, Rufus Palmer and family, the pastor and members of the Kingsview SDA Church, Canada, the Satire Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the SDA community in Grenada, and friends and neighbors in Toronto, Canada, and at Marley, Lamode, and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Pearl Agnes Bernard, née Fletcher, also known as Mother, of Monroe Street, Victoria, St. Mark, who resided at Snell Hall and Lower Morley, St. Patrick, and in Toronto, Canada, will take place on Tuesday, 11th July at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Seventh-day Adventist Church Satires, and interment will be at the Morley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Augustine David King, also known as Zab, Beggs, and Augustus, of Bylands, who resided at Soubise St. Andrew, retired truck driver of GCNA, passed away on Saturday, 3rd June 2023, at the age of 70. He was the father of nurse Kenesha King, Oswald, and Goodness in the USA, adopted father of Wade in the USA, grandfather of Ethan, Osel, Osim, Ayana, and Onika, brother of Wellington in the USA, Byron in Trinidad, Henry, Christopher, Gemma, Valerie, Louisa, Anne-Marie, and Teresa, also known as Honey, uncle of many including Sharon, Ken, Shamali, Vianne, and Vanessa, brother-in-law of Lucy, Alban, and David, cousin of many. Many relatives and friends including Margaret and family in Trinidad, the Beggs, Alexander, and King's families of Bylands, Mirabeau, Monthorn, and Birchgrove, the pastor and members of the Monlong Pentecostal Church, Carmen and family, past and present employees of GCNA, and friends and family of Petite Martinique, Soubise, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Augustine David King, also known as Zab, Beggs, and Augustus, of Bylands, who resided at Soubise St. Andrew, will take place on Tuesday, 11th July at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Grenville Pentecostal Lighthouse, and interment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Imelda Lena Baptiste, also known as Mama, of Chantimel St. Patrick, who resided in London, England, peacefully passed away on Monday, May 1st, 2023 in London, England, at the age of 68. Left to mourn are her sister Maria Caliste, also known as Loyola, and brother Gabriel Baptiste, both in the USA. Sister-in-law Teresa Baptiste. Beloved friend Dan Benjamin. A host of nieces and nephews including John and Joan Baptiste, Lucy Baptiste in the UK, Glenda, Judy, Glenn and Daniel Frame in the United Kingdom, Jacqueline Baptiste in Aruba, Sherma and Alvin Baptiste in the USA, Allison, Glenn, Ann, Kenrick, Kennedy and Kenneth Caliste in the US, Ann Lewis, Joseph and Kathleen Gordon in Grenada, Dana Baptiste and Lyndon Gordon, both in Canada. Grand aunt of many including Candace, Dane, Tyler, Crystal, Anna, Tyrick, Anselm, Anisia, Kimberly, Camille, Shanique, and Sharissa. Other relatives and friends including Valen Lewis, Fatima and family, Tar and family, the Baptiste and Frame families in the UK, the USA, Chantimel and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Imelda Lena Baptiste, also known as Mama, of Chantimel St. Patrick, who resided in London, England, will take place on Wednesday, July 12th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Satires Roman Catholic Church, and interment will be at the Morley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Franklin Christopher Humphrey, also known as Coy and Nigel, of Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, passed away on Friday, 23rd June 2023, at the age of 44. He was the son of Faithlin Humphrey and Wilton Thomas, brother of Kelly Humphrey in the UK, Kellen, Ayana, Sasha, and Franklin, nephew of Hannah McKay and Nell Simon in Canada, Winifred, Beverly, Shirley and Catherine in the USA, Wilfred McKay in the UK, Pastor Joshua McKee, Joan, Andre and Andrew McKee in Grenada, and Terry in Carriacou. Uncle of Dijai and Naira, cousin of many, too numerous to mention. Many other relatives and friends including Carl Humphrey and the Humphrey families, the Sayers family of Birchgrove, Crofton Baptiste and family, and Ira Charles and family of Celeste, Rebecca, Fanny McFarlane and family, the Phillip family, the Lendore family, William and Annette Haynes and Cuthbert Stafford, and friends and neighbours in Grenada and Carriacou, including Mr. Kent and family, Pamela Collins, Roxanne Newton, Carol Gittins and family, Teacher Etty and family, Mrs. Diana Wright, Dwayne Francis and family, and Rasta Bucky of Fontenoy, and neighbours of Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, and surrounding areas, too numerous to mention. The funeral service for the late Franklin Christopher Humphrey, also known as Coy and Nigel, of Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, will take place on Wednesday, July 12th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at Thy Kingdom Come Deliverance Sanctuary, Brunswick, Carriacou, and entombment will be at the Brunswick Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Joy Veronica Ned of Grosse Pointe St. Mark passed away on Friday 16th June 2023 at the age of 70. She was the beloved mother of Gary Ned of Grosse Pointe St. Mark, grandmother of Ziva Ned, Corey Joseph and Jeremy Ned, sister of Osbert Ned and Joan Nichols in Grenada, Jackie Ned and Judy Ned Rodriguez in Canada, Jenny and Jimmy in New York, aunt of many in Grenada, Canada and New York, including Laverne Nichols Mapp, Vern and Vaughn Nicholas, Nadia Ned Campbell, Natalie Ned Redhead, Anne-Marie Ned, Ike Ned, Alex and Keisha Ned, mother-in-law of Latoya Bubb, best friend Marilyn Phillip in Canada, sister-in-law of Beverly Ned, Ursula, Josephine, Enid, Joe Rodriguez and Anthony Nichols, caregiver Liz Sampson, many cousins, other relatives and friends including Joycelyn and Peter Williams of Coronage, Trinidad, Norma Glean and the Glean family, Corinne Dabrio, Clara Taylor, Kevin Frederick, Kathleen Winters in Trinidad, Pastor Best and members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church Grove, Rena Joseph, Nikki Andrew, Kevin McSween and family, Christopher Bernardine, Dawnette Samuel, Rosemary Welch, Joycelyn Welch and the Welch family of Bonaire, Nurse Mitchell, Nadine Fletcher in Canada, Annlyn McPhee in New York, the Bartholomew family of Sataz, the Ned family of Petite Martinique, and friends and neighbors of Grove, Moran, Grosse Pointe, Victoria, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Joy Veronica Ned of Grosse Pointe St. Mark will take place on Thursday, July 13th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Seventh-day Adventist Church Grove, St. John, and entombment will be at the family cemetery, Moran. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Marita Baptiste Batson, also known as Maritz and Granny, of Laborie, who resided at Springs St. George, passed away on Monday 26th June 2023 at the age of 90. She was the mother of Pansy Batson, Eastlyn, Cassius in Grenada, and Pearl in the USA. Grand and great-grandmother of many including Shane, Shelley, Aaron, Roger, Lyndon, Maya, Curtis, Hilaria, and Lystra in the USA. Aunt of many nieces and nephews including John Mitchell, Angelino of Laborie, and Ivy Baptiste Bartholomew in the USA. Other relatives, friends, and neighbors of Springs, Laborie, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Marita Baptiste Batson, also known as Maritz and Granny, of Laborie, who resided at Springs St. George, will take place on Thursday, July 13th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at Bailey's Chapel, Coronage, St. George's, and interment will be at the St. George's Centre Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Nicola Carla George of Rosehill St. Patrick, nurse at the Mountgay Hospital, passed away on Thursday, June 8th, 2023, at the age of 39. She was the mother of Tiana and Tyrrell George, daughter of Doris George in Canada and Lennox Cornwall in Grenada, life partner Wendell Williams, sister of Yvette, Jennifer, Julian, Michelle, Betsy, Jason, Josh, Lindy, Glendon, Glenroy, Natasha, Sherry, Natalie, Keisha, Tabitha, Ambika, Chrisika, Ambina, Nympha, Sally Ann, and Anthony. Niece of many including Lynette, Janet, Suzanne, Carol, Lisbon, Tony, and Michael. Many nieces and nephews including Ricardo, Shanthan, Janissa, Jeffiel, Travis, Turvin, Cherise, Casey, Jahim, Malia, Zinnia, Naya, and CJ. Cousin of Rodney and Trina. Many other relatives and friends in Grenada and abroad including Evie and Wendell Williams, Rachel, Gillian, Tanina, the matron, nurses, and staff of the Mountgay Hospital, the Philip and James families of Mountrich, the Philip family of Belmont, the George family of River Sally, the Redhead family of Rosehill, and friends and neighbors of Rosehill, Montvendu, Riversally and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Nicola Carla George of Rosehill St. Patrick will take place on Thursday, July 13th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Satire Seventh-day Adventist Church and entombment will be at the Morley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Cedric Christopher Belgrave, also known as B. Black Boy and Cobry, of Gulf Course St. George, passed away on Friday 9th June 2023 at the age of 68. He was the father of Kellen Pilgrim and Floyd Mitchell, grandfather of Noah Mitchell, Tyrek and Tyler Pilgrim, father-in-law of Cindy Bain and Neoka Pilgrim, brother of Mike and Ricky Perry in the UK, Selma in the USA, Hazel Belgrave in Grenada, Gwyneth and Janice in Guyana, uncle of many in the UK, the USA and Guyana, including Corey Christopher. Other relatives and friends including Maureen Mitchell, Patricia Cox, Murilla Archibald, Dency Cox, Cecil Haynes, the Pilgrim family of Jean Anglais, the Belgrave family of Hopevale, the Perry family of Caliste, Julian, Julius, and Vernon, and friends and neighbours of Gulf Course and Jean Anglais. The funeral of the late Cedric Christopher Belgrave, also known as B. Black Boy and Cobry, of Gulf Course St. George, will take place on Thursday, July 13th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Blessed Sacrament RC Church, Grandon, St. George, and interment will be at the Grandon Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. John T. Jordan Josiah Robinson of Lansopine, who resided at Caliste, St. George, passed away on Saturday, 17th June 2023 at the age of 24. He was the son of Peter and Lindra Robinson, brother of Jade, Jady, Joan, Daniel and Andrew Robinson, and Achiel Blackett, adopted son of Yvette Noel Shaw, grandson of Velda Thomas, Fennis Sylvester, and Magdalene Williams, great-grandson of Phyllis and Wesley Thomas, nephew of Indra and Andra Thomas, Stephanie, Shermella, Recia and Devon Marcel, Lenoris, Lenora and Devon Augustine, Dr. Ashlyn and Lisa Alexis, Marsha Claissant and Kathy and Jaldo Smart and Chanel Noel, Roxanne and Abigail John, grand-nephew of Sergeant No. 815 Aline Paul, Martina, Evelyn and John Desant, Matthew, Veronica Michael, Cosmas, Maria, Teresa and Agatha Sylvester, godson of Ulrich Kuhn, also known as Yuli, and Betty Ann Lazarus, cousin of many other relatives and friends. The funeral of the late John T. Jordan Josiah Robinson of Lansopine, who resided at Caliste, St. George, will take place on Thursday, July 13th at 9:30 a.m. Funeral service will be held at the Blessed Sacrament Catholic Church, Grandon, St. George, and interment will be at the Grandon Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. W.R.C. Leslie and Jacinta Braveboy of Lauriston, Carriacou, passed away on Tuesday, 14th June 2023 at the age of 53. She was the daughter of Eunice Lee Braveboy, her loving and devoted mother, sister of Anthony and Junior Braveboy, Corporal Jerome James, attached to the Carriacou Police Station, Leslie DeCoto in the United Kingdom, and Zira DeCoto in Grenada, niece of Eunice and Mary Matheson, Rose King and Ryan in the USA, Bernice Matheson in the UK, Fitzgerald, also known as Jeff, Anne and Teresa Matheson in Carriacou, Erlin, Lane and Patrick King in Grenada, aunt of Nikita Braveboy and Jeriah Dufont in Grenada, Cody, Curry and Cordell James, Amari Braveboy, Zidane Jacobs Braveboy, Montari and Leslie Jr. DeCoto, close cousin of Marilyn, Merle, Sherrianne, Nixon, Nigel, Emma, Nathan, Godwin, Anne, Michael, Slade, Nadine, Jason and Garvin, sister-in-law of Gertrude Braveboy, Deborah Cajo and Avon James. Many other relatives and friends, including the Matheson families in Carriacou, Grenada, the USA and the United Kingdom, Godwin Emmons and family, the doctors, matron and nurses and staff at the Princess Royal Hospital, the superintendent and officers attached to the Carriacou Police Station, the commissioner and officers of the Royal Grenadier Police Force, members of the graduating class of 1989, retired police officer Pamela Miller, the Fraser, George, Bedeau, Alexis, Gay, Noel and Mendez families of Harveyvale, Belmont and surrounding areas, too numerous to mention. The funeral service for the late W.R.C. Leslie and Jacinta Braveboy of Lauriston, Carriacou will take place on Friday, July 14th at 12 noon. Funeral service will be held at the St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Church, Lauriston, Carriacou, and interment will be at the Harveyvale Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Simeon Felix, also known as Dingo, of La Femme St. David, passed away on Saturday, June 24, 2023, at the age of 70. He was the husband of Rosaline Felix, father of Rondal, Ronald, Russell, Randon, and Rita, brother of Valerie, Christine, Violet, and Eslin, grandfather of Ronel, Rondal, Rochelle, Ronique, Ronim, Ronaya, and Prince. Many nieces, nephews, in-laws, relatives, and friends, including the Felix, John, and Scott families of La Femme, the Alexander family of Hermitage, the Thomas family of Roucaine, the Gabriel family of Café, Pastor Selwyn Haling and members of the Garden of Prayer St. Paul's, Pastor Philip Francis and members of the Temple of Faith La Femme, the Smith family of Berot, the Mapson family of Petite Becaille, and friends and neighbors of La Femme, Charlotteville, Mondelise, and Petite Becaille. The funeral of the late Simeon Felix, also known as Dingo, of La Femme St. David, will take place on Friday, July 14th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Prayer St. Paul's, and interment will be at the Mount Airy Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Rita McIntyre, of the Fall Edge Grand Aunt St. George, passed away on Friday, June 30th, 2023, at the age of 81. The funeral arrangements for the late Rita McIntyre of the Fall Edge Grand Aunt St. George will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Emmanuel Murray, also known as Rawle and Gofar, of Montrule St. Patrick, passed away on Friday, June 30th, 2023, at the age of 79. The funeral arrangements for the late Emmanuel Murray, also known as Rawle and Gofar, of Montrule St. Patrick, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Agatha Cynthia Noel of Adelphi Birchgrove St. Andrew passed away on Wednesday, 28th June 2023, at the age of 90. The funeral arrangements for the late Agatha Cynthia Noel of Adelphi Birchgrove St. Andrew will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Jasmine Lewis, also known as Nenny, of Wharf St. John, passed away on Thursday, 22nd June 2023, at the age of 92. The funeral arrangements for the late Jasmine Lewis, also known as Nenny, of Wharf St. John, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Francis Bernard James, also known as Presley, and Brandy Pling, of Coast Guard St. Mark, passed away on Thursday, 29th June 2023, at the age of 75. The funeral arrangements for the late Francis Bernard James, also known as Presley, and Brandy Pling, of Coast Guard St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Clint Thornhill, also known as Police, of Constantine St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 27th June 2023, at the age of 27. The funeral arrangements for the late Clint Thornhill, also known as Police, of Constantine St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Terry Ferret, also known as Puta, of St. David Street, Victoria St. Mark, passed away on Saturday, 17th June 2023, at the age of 57. The funeral arrangements for the late Terry Foray, also known as Puta, of St. David Street, Victoria, St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Royston Godfrey Jelliso, also known as Red George of Mardi Gras, St. David, died on Thursday, 22nd June 2023, at the age of 56. The funeral arrangements for the late Royston Godfrey Jelliso, also known as Red George of Mardi Gras, St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Catherine Campbell, also known as Catherine Drayton of River Road, who resided at Spring St. George, passed away on Monday, 26th June 2023, at the age of 84. The funeral arrangements for the late Catherine Campbell, also known as Catherine Drayton of River Road, who resided at Spring St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Rickelson Toussaint, also known as Rick Boy and Baby Boy, of River Sally St. Patrick, passed away on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, at the age of 20. The funeral arrangements for the late Rickelson Toussaint, also known as Rick Boy and Baby Boy, of River Sally St. Patrick, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Catherine Lucille Frederick of Bellevue St. David, who resided in Canada, passed away on Saturday, 17th June 2023, at the age of 83. The funeral arrangements for the late Catherine Lucille Frederick of Bellevue St. David, who resided in Canada, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Garvin Sean McGilvery of Beausejour St. George died on Wednesday, June 14th, 2023, at the age of 39. The funeral arrangements for the late Garvin Sean McGilvery of Beausejour St. George will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Hubert Ewart Braffett, also known as Bert, Campaign and Braff, of Monjaloo, who resided at Woburn St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 13th June 2023, at the age of 73. The funeral arrangements for the late Hubert Ewart Braffett, also known as Bert, Campaign and Braff, of Monjaloo, who resided at Woburn St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Hagley, also known as Bonnie, of Bellevue St. David, who resided in the USA, passed away on Thursday, 15th June 2023, at the age of 62. The funeral arrangements for the late Joseph Hagley, also known as Bonnie, of Bellevue St. David, who resided in the USA, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
I just want to express my sympathy with all those of you who have lost your loved ones. We know it is not an easy piece to lose somebody that you love dearly. But death is not the end, because the Bible tells us that there is life after death. My mind goes back to a man in the Bible named David, a man who, at least he had a son by Uriah's wife, and the child got sick and died. In fact, the Bible says in verse 18 of 1 Samuel chapter 12, and it came to pass on the seventh day that the child died. The child died. But that was not the end. David began a series of mourning, laid on the ground, upon the ground, upon the earth, and he called on God to save his son so that he can have sweet fellowship. He wanted to have time with his son. He wanted to have his son grow up to be the person that he wanted him to be. He probably wanted to play the first cricket match, or he probably wanted to go kick the first football in the field. Or he wanted probably him to climb the first tree. But yet for all, the Bible says the child died. David in himself satisfied that the sovereign God who gives and takes is able to do great things. Then David arose, the Bible says, from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel and came into the house of the Lord to worship. David had the hope that he would see his beloved son again. And so, ladies and gentlemen out there that are in the mourning period, pick yourself up and recognize that if your loved one died in Christ, you are going to see them again. And the right thing to do is to come to that saving knowledge, recognizing who God is, and God is going to bring you through. And so I thank you, and I trust as we pray for you, you would cheer yourself and recognize that the sovereign God takes control of everything. God bless you.